Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Barbara Ziane, the Acting Chief Director of Economic Planning in the Gauteng Department of Economic Development. Good morning to you all, and let me once again welcome you to this very, very important webinar, which is organized by the Economic Development and Wellbeing Research Group, which is in the School of Economics. And this is in collaboration with Gauteng Department of Economic Development. And the webinar of today is looking at understanding the ownership, dynamics, nature and challenge of townships sponsorship. I must say that this is one of the activities under the collaboration between the School of Economics and the Gauteng Department of Economic Development. And as a School of Economics, we are very much excited that an event like this is taking place. And I would like to acknowledge the following individuals. Of course, the Deputy Director General for Economic Planning in the Gauteng Department of Economic Development, Mr. Bloem Konilana. And of course, our Program Director, Barbara Ziane, who is the Acting Chief Director of Economic Planning, and the representative of the Department of Home Affairs. And of course, because we are talking about the sponsorship, we have Brian Makwaiba, who is an entrepreneur. We're looking forward to hearing from you. And then the presenters, and of course, the sponsorships owners, the entrepreneurs themselves, the academics from the School of Economics here at the University of Johannesburg, and other institutions, researchers, colleagues, you are all welcome. And to just make sure, I have been advised by Dr. Biase that to make sure that I don't break the protocol, I would like to say all protocols observed. I wanted to start with that, but I was informed that if I say all protocols observed, it means that I'm being lazy. But I welcome you all to this very, very important seminar. And I thought it's also important to just briefly say something about the School of Economics here at the University of Johannesburg. It's one of the largest in South Africa and probably in the African continent, where we offer bachelor's degrees in economics and econometrics, honors degree in economics and econometrics, and several specialized master's degrees. These include a master's degree in local economic development, a master's degree in competition regulation and economic development, a master's degree in development economics, a master's degree in industrial policy, and of course, a master's degree in economics. And those are actually specialized master's degrees. And of course, a master of financial engineering. Those are specialized master's degrees. And we also offer a degree of the highest order, which is a PhD in economics, PhD in econometrics, and there are also specializations, PhD in local economic development, industrial policy, and yeah, those are the degree, the PhD degrees, the degree of the highest order. And I must say that this school is very research intensive, where our staff members conduct research and publish in local and international journals. And we also have several research centers in our School of Economics. We have the Center for Local Economic Development, which is dealing with local economic development issues. We have a Center for Competition Regulation and Economic Development, the Public Environmental Economic Research Centers. So these research centers, they conduct research for local, basically for private sector and government organization, and they also ensure, or they act as a link between the university and the industry to ensure that what we are offering here at the University of Johannesburg is relevant to the industry. And I must say, in terms of our reputation, we are rated among the top 4 economics schools in the continent, and of course, South Africa. But we are not just a school that is chasing numbers. We are a school that, I must say, we want our research to make an impact. And I must say, we are, our students come from a needy background, meaning that the University of Johannesburg is helping to reduce poverty. And this activity here that we, or the webinar that we are attending today, is one of the activities that ensure that whatever we do at the University of Johannesburg, and specifically the School of Economics, remain relevant to the industry and it makes an impact. We are one of the inclusive, and that is what I always say. One of the things that we are proud of is how inclusive we are. Not exclusive, but how inclusive we are, in the sense that our diversity is one of our advantage, where we have staff members that are coming from all corners of South Africa, the rest of the continent and the world. And our students come from, most of them, from the rest of South Africa. And most of them come from needy backgrounds, and some of them are the first to obtain degrees in their family. And we are happy about the contribution that we are making. And I think when I was briefly talking about the structure of the School of Economics, is that I was talking about the centers, the degrees that we are offering. We are all working together for the common good of the School of Economics to ensure that what we teach and what we research remain relevant to the industry. And the focus of this webinar today is to get, or to gather insights and guidance. These are the guidance that we are going to hear from academics, researchers, experts. And of course, when you are talking about sponsorships, you know, there are regulation, and that is where government come in. And I'm happy that we have government representatives where we are going to gain insight. And of course, the sponsorship owners themselves, the entrepreneurs. And when I look at the attendance, I see that we have several entrepreneurs that will share with us. The aim is to ensure that we develop this very, very important sector of the economy. I am sure you agree with me that sponsorships and entrepreneurs are key to generating the much needed jobs, or let me put it this way, are the key to contribute to economic development, generate the much needed job, and alleviate poverty. The aim of, or the purpose of this seminar is to get all the lessons, expertise from the participants that I have mentioned, so that we end up with a province that is experiencing an increase in economic growth, expansion of its GDP, jobs being generated, poverty and inequality being alleviated. That is why I am very, very much excited about this webinar. And you could see that we will be hearing about the challenges from several presenters, the challenges that spaza shops in the townships are experiencing, and from the government, the rules related to spaza shops. And we'll also hear some local case studies. This is a very, very exciting programs. Once again, welcome. I welcome all of you to this very, very important seminar, and I wish you all the excitement in your deliberation in this webinar. Thank you very much. I have been warned by Dr. Biase that sometimes I tend to talk quite a lot, that I should make sure that I restrict myself to 10 minutes. Thank you very much. Over to you, Program Director.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Prof. Hater. I mean, this is really equally exciting, especially this interaction between government, industry, and academia, as well as civil society is very crucial. But what is even more important, Prof. Hater, is the issue around research. The research coming out of the universities, the research that should be accessible to be able to solve problems, you know, on the ground. So this interaction, amongst others, seeks to, you know, achieve just that. Yes, indeed, the province is working on a number of projects, especially with the universities and also with University of Johannesburg. So this is but one of, you know, the addition, the projects that we're adding into the mix of all the programs that the department and the Gauteng provincial government is working in collaboration with different universities. With that being said, thank you so much for the insightful welcome and information, Prof. Hater. I'm then gonna move to the DDG, Mr. Bulumkonelana. Mr. Bulumkonelana, over to you, sir, to outline the purpose of this webinar. Thank you.
Program Director, all protocol observed. I think it would be important for me to say that firstly, as the Department of Economic Development, we are greatly pleased by having the relationship we have with the University of Johannesburg as a preeminent brand in cutting-edge research and innovation. As my task has been explained by the program director, and it is a simple one really, just to say what the purpose of this session is. I will limit myself to that, but also start by apologizing because I would have to excuse myself shortly thereafter because I have another engagement at 11. The purpose of this session, obviously, as said earlier by colleagues, is to hear the voices first and foremost of those operating in the spaza shop sub-sector, economic sector, to understand their challenges, to understand the context within which they operate, and to learn things that make it both difficult and possible to operate. And the two are intertwined because if spaza shops were not functioning, then there would be no spaza shops. But they are equally facing serious challenges that have in recent times, unfortunately, led to violence in certain instances, have led to loss of income in certain instances. And so therefore, it is important for us to understand what the dynamics that underpin this subsector are as government policy practitioners, but also equally as academics to guide those who would be future practitioners. But the session is also important to us, and its purpose include in the earlier understanding the social capital embedded in the spaza shop network that makes it possible for certain spaza shops to thrive and those that are not performing well to be supported by others that are performing better. This is important in two respects, mainly. One, to understand the entrepreneurship culture within the spaza shop subsector. But two, to understand how social capital as a motive force influences peer-to-peer lending as a means of accessing credit for spaza shop owners. Because of their largely informal character, spaza shop owners find it difficult to access credit from formal institutions and therefore rely on peer-to-peer lending. But I would want to hasten to say that there are also other opportunities that are related to the fourth industrial revolution and maybe later on with the fifth industrial revolution on automated forms of peer-to-peer lending and peer-to-peer support, which with the strength of the University of Johannesburg in the fourth industrial revolution research, we could all benefit to introduce digitalized solutions to the spaza shop market or subsector in order to enhance their growth, solve their problems real time, and give them better access to markets. Unfortunately, colleagues and esteemed academics on this platform, I am not one who believes in the theory of transitioning spaza shops to formality. I think that our reality as the Global South is that of informal trade, and we should embrace it, we should learn from it, and we should make it functional. If individuals so choose to transition, it should be an individual choice. Informality is no less entrepreneurial than formality. And therefore, we should embrace it for what it is, because that is our Southern reality at this stage, at least in historical times. So with those few words, therefore, colleagues, I urge all of us to participate in this important gathering, one of many to come, to find solutions to grow the spaza shop subsector, to learn from the spaza shop subsector, and innovate in support of the spaza shop sector. I wish you well in your deliberations today, and also wish you great success in further endeavors with respect to the spaza shop research agenda. Thank you.
Thank you so much, DDG, for the rich words coming out, especially around the issue of formality versus, informal. And like the DDG has correctly put it, it's very important to equally embrace informality, because we know the very nature of our economy and how it is structured, but also today, we equally know that, the economic environment is really not so much supportive in terms of absorbing the majority of people into the formal sphere of employment. So if informality is able to take a chunk of addressing some of these challenges, then so let it be supported in that fashion. And with that being said, then gonna move to the next agenda item. But just to indicate that this session is being recorded, I'm informed, and that we are now live on Facebook. So just that everyone is informed. The next speaker is going to be our main presenter, Professor Nicholas Ngapha. So I'm just going to be introducing Professor Ngapha from his bio. Professor Nicholas Ngapha holds a PhD in economics from the University of Cape Town with over 18 years of research, policy, and management experience. He's a professor of economics at the University of Johannesburg with expertise in quantitative research techniques, economic development, policy impact assessment, with a wide range of modern econometric techniques. His experience is on development issues, focusing on poverty, inequality, labor market dynamics, and inclusive economic growth with related policies like health issues, gender, climate change, trade, industrialization, etc. Professor Ngapha has undertaken studies for organizations like the World Bank, the African Union, UK Overseas Development Institute, African Economic Research Consortium, Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, Oxfam, and the South African government. His most recent works include re-examining the growth, poverty, and inequality relationship in South Africa in the context of COVID-19, Russia-Ukraine, war and food security in South Africa and Mozambique, and climate change and gender inequality in the labor market. So I need to check from you, Dr. Biase, is Prof here already? Is he ready to present?
Yes, he's definitely here. He will be presenting in a few seconds. Let me just contact him and I'll come back to you.
Thank you.
I am here. I think I managed to connect. I want to apologize that this meeting coincided because I was at the African Union meeting and we were launching the African Development Dynamics Report, which I was an author. But for some reason, a Kenyan minister was delayed and it started late. That is why I came late. But I had to excuse myself from them because I'd already given a yes to this meeting, and I'm glad to be here. It seems it's an exciting relationship with government that all of us have been looking for. And yeah, I don't know if I've hijacked everything, Dr. Biase.
You can project it if you have some slides to share with us. That would be great.
Okay, I hope you can see my slides as projected.
Yes.
On the screen. I think let me put full screen to allow me to be able to project. So I've titled this following what I was asked to do at very, very short notice. I tried to do the best I can do with the time that I had. I titled it The Dynamics, Challenges of and the International Best Practices for Townships, Spaza Shops in South Africa. So what I'm going to be talking about is I will give some brief setting the scene, which is mainly background of the importance of the informal economy and the spaza shops. I take it from DDG Bulumka Nelena, who emphasized that we are not seeking to annihilate the informality because African business model is based on that, and we rather have to learn from that as well. And I'll look at dynamics of the sector entry exit. Most of the data that I present here is either from Statistics South Africa's quarterly labor force survey or the recently, not recently, the Competition Commission's inquiry on supermarkets and the retail sector. I'll look at competitive dynamics, the relationship between spaza shops and supermarkets. I also look at competitive dynamics, the relationship between spaza shops, local owned and foreign owned. And I'll look at other challenges because these competitive dynamics pose challenges for South African owned spaza shops. I'll look at other challenges, broadly speaking. Then I'll look at lessons from elsewhere. Sorry for the spelling, it's from elsewhere. And lessons from foreign-owned spaza shops. Then I'll just briefly mention some of the sources that I've consulted. Talking a little bit about lessons from foreign-owned spaza shop. I think foreign-owned spaza shop is international best practice imported into South Africa. So I'm going to be paying attention mostly on provoking thought for us to see how can policy be directed to leveraging on the knowledge set of foreign-owned spaza shops to be able to empower South Africans for better productivity. I also pay a lot of attention on deficit of social capital post-apartheid, especially as we are getting into 20 years after apartheid. We are finding that social capital is significantly declining in South Africa. It is my conviction, and from what I've read and what I've experienced, that social capital is one of the key to success in informality. And that is something that must be flagged and emphasized. And before I go ahead to speak about what I will be sharing, I have relied on my own work to some extent because I have done various surveys in rural South Africa, particularly in Limpopo and KZN, on smallholder farmers and their relationship with small traders and supermarkets, which I've done report on various occasions, both in South Africa and also in Southern Africa. So I'm drawing from that experience as I'm speaking, and I'm also drawing largely from the literature that I have consulted. So it is from all of these that my knowledge is coming from. So that is the source of the knowledge. Now, historically, South African townships had actually relied, even during apartheid days, on spaza shops, small informal retail shops and groceries. But that changed post-apartheid because over time we have seen aggressive inroads of supermarket chains into the local township space, and that has really changed the dynamics of supermarkets, of spaza shops. But also we have seen significant increase in foreign advancement into the spaza shops over the same period of time, which then meant that local South African-owned spaza shops are facing competition with supermarkets, but they are also facing competition with foreign-owned shops. And foreign-owned shops by nature are a bit different from local-owned spaza shops, which we will speak about more. And I think that since we have association of spaza shop owners here, we will also learn from them. I also want to flag that this presentation will be more also a learning curve for me from the association as well, if they're going to be presenting. We have seen that, we know that the informal sector is really a backbone of the local economy, and particularly the township economy. And it is important to support that the informal sector, and they serve generally the poorer segment of the population, or the poorest segment of the population. Yesterday, I looked at the Q1 of the 2023 quarterly labor force survey to look at the constitution of informality in employment. And after applying relevant statistical techniques, I came up with 29%. And that is a significant increase from what we knew in few years back. So many people are going informal. They are entering into informality as formal jobs are being depleted. So 29% of South Africans' workforce earn their livelihood from the informal sector, which is mostly the retail sector. Retail in terms of groceries, in terms of food, and so on. And the macro entrepreneurial activities in the retail of fresh foods and beverages and groceries collectively account for up to 50% of township informal businesses. And this is quite significant. Now, concerning the dynamics, the entry and exit, this data is based on 1,181 informal retail grocery outlets surveyed by the Livelihood Foundation between 2012 and 2017, 2 rounds, and they were contracted by the South African Competition Commission to do the 2017 round, which I borrowed from. And this is a graph that I took from that data, I constructed from that data, an excerpt of that graph for the most interesting, but it pictures the general trend in spaza shops. There is significant attrition. Spaza shops are dwindling. This is pre-COVID, and we see that pre-COVID spaza shops were really falling in many parts of South Africa. There is only one case of rather an increase, that is in Free State in the Tabong local area. So when we look at this, we then realize that spaza shops are falling away at a significant rate when we look at the differences, for example, between 304 in 2012 and now 86, 2017 in KwaMashu. Then we understand that it is a very important issue, the issue of attrition of spaza shops. And that suggests that they are facing very, very significant challenges. And this picture is broadly the case for the rest of South Africa. We don't see similar attrition with supermarket chains. On the contrary, we see expansion. I don't have data here, but that is common knowledge. When we look at competitive dynamics between supermarkets and local-owned spaza shops, what I've done here is that I've collected some information as of 2017. That is the competitive landscape that existed as of that time. And we know that things have changed. And so that has increased. The fierceness of competition has increased somewhat between that time and now. But let us rely on the data that we have. Price competition suggests that the commodities that are sold in common between locally owned, not locally owned, spaza shops and supermarkets, there is significant price difference. Supermarket prices are generally lower than spaza shops. And we must ask ourselves why. If we look at bread, for example, brown bread, the difference is close to 1 rand. We look at white bread, the difference is close to 1 rand also. We look at milk, the difference is about 5 rands. Then we look at maize meal, the difference is close to 3 rands or 2 rand something. And that is the trend. This is a basket of commodities. We see that supermarkets have significant power in terms of being able to underprice. And we know that in economics, competition economics, whoever has the capacity to price less can easily drive competitors out of the market. So supermarkets, what we can then say here is that one might say from the survey's view that spaza shops are at the mercy of supermarkets, because if they really want to kick supermarkets out, they will. I also want to seize the opportunity here because there are some advantages that the presence of supermarkets have on spaza shops, which can be explored. But in my view, I think those advantages are dwindling because spaza shops, you should really take advantage of time period when supermarkets close and people who buy late, they are the ones who really go to spaza shops and amongst other things. But we've seen that supermarkets are increasingly opening their doors. Now Checkers opens in some areas right to 8 p.m. And then that advantage, because I'm making this point here because in certain literature, when you do studies, you are going to find that these are some of the advantages that supermarkets pose vis-a-vis spaza shops. But those advantages are dwindling. I think that if we carry on further research in the current time, we might find that the space is being limited for supermarkets. And there's much about that in literature concerning the advantages, but we need to do further research to really show the dynamics of those advantages. So what I'm announcing or I'm saying here is that spaza shops are actually being squeezed from various fronts. And consumers themselves have views that are tending to be away from spaza shops. There was a survey commissioned by Competition Commission in 2017 as well. 82% of consumers answered that they shop at their local supermarkets, but 72% answer as of that time that they do shop in spaza shops, and others say at supermarkets that are located outside their local areas, about 61%. Now, where do the advantages of supermarkets come from? It comes mainly from economies of scale that they are able to leverage in terms of reduction in cost. And those economies of scale come from the measures that they are able to take to cut costs. They are what we call monopsony. They have buyer power. They're able to purchase goods and services at prices that they have an upper hand in negotiating because of their share size. They also have monopoly in terms of selling power. They can make their prices as they wish, actually, because of the level of concentration of the supermarket chains. We saw during the times of COVID that most of the abuse of market power, abuse of competitive practices came from supermarkets, where key commodities were highly inflated. Why were they inflated? Because there were no competitive constraint against supermarkets, and that is where they had. That what happened there is a pointer to the powers that supermarkets have to be able to charge as much as they wish, and the consumers will not have much alternative, especially as others are being squeezed out. So this diagram indicates that spaza shops, in most cases, depend on the supermarkets themselves in order to sell. In other cases, they're able to get from suppliers, but they don't get the same terms from suppliers like the supermarkets. Let me give one example. I think that was in 2019. I was collecting data on smallholder farmers in Limpopo, because I was studying the relationship between smallholder farmers and supermarkets. Supermarkets constrain smallholder farmers to bring their goods in the state in which supermarkets want, the freshness of it. The smallholder farmers must come to the supermarkets and deliver there. But at the same time, as I was doing the study, I was also studying small retail shops and informal traders. They don't have that advantage. They go to the smallholder farmers and buy from there, and then they come and sell. But if smallholder farmers want to sell to supermarkets, they have to bring the goods to supermarkets. They have to make sure that they bring it at in the condition that the supermarkets want. And again, this is another kind of power where the goods that the supermarkets sell, those goods are running after the supermarkets, whereas the spaza shops must go after those goods. And that entails a lot of logistic costs, transport costs. At times, as spaza shops, you buy like that, you transport, you lack the infrastructure to be able to bring it to your shop. By the time you get to your shop, the commodity, if it's perishable, is not in the same state that you get from Pick and Pay, that you get from ShopRite, that you get from Checkers, and so on. So these are the advantages that supermarkets really have vis-a-vis spaza shops. But that said, as I said before, the relationship between supermarkets and spaza shops is a bit nuanced, because this is as of 2017, this information I'm putting here. The proportion of different kinds of trading retail types that report having lost market shares to supermarkets. You have general dealers, spaza shops at that time is only 5%, and other supermarkets do lose market shares to other supermarkets. Well, but when we look at these 5%, when we are thinking about the size of the supermarket, the spaza shops and their turnover and their margins, it is very significant, but not as significant. So there's a suggestion here that there are some benefits that spaza shops do have, but it is my view as I look at the sector that those benefits are being squeezed out, and in the future, if care is not taken, you will not have those benefits anymore, or maybe it will be quite low. And that is explained by how many spaza shops are actually exiting the markets. So supermarket chains give a few advantages, and spaza shops benefit from extended trading hours, as I said before, because they take advantage of the time that supermarkets are not more trading, and they trade. They also take advantage of networks and proximity. They're able to sell on credit. So very poor people are able to purchase on credit. Why this is a plus for spaza shops to be able to trade and have advantages, it is also a challenge, because due to poverty, many people will take credit and not pay back. And over time, spaza shops will go out of business. So these are the advantages that spaza shops have, and that could be one of the reasons, some of the reasons why spaza shops reported that, or 5% reported losing market share, which means that 95% did not. And it's due to various aspects. What I mean is that they are not servicing the same group of people, the same element, and they are servicing a different category of people, different social class, and mostly the very poor who cannot easily purchase from supermarkets. And why that seems to be an advantage, it is in itself a challenge to the spaza shops themselves. Other aspects that supermarkets bring or present around spaza shops is relationships of opportunity. Supermarkets are able, possibly, to be able to provide immediate environment of dynamism, where by nature, supermarkets attract development around where there are many smaller complementary services come and hang around, which spaza shops can also benefit from. There is exchange of knowledge and innovations. It might not be explicit exchange of knowledge, but I think that spaza shops do observe the dynamism around supermarkets, especially when they are not far off. And there is possibility of collaboration in business strategies, but this collaboration, from my experience with the work that I was referring to, it needs policy push. Supermarkets are able to play a role in developing small businesses if it is made some sort of mandatory. I had worked at the Competition Commission before, and at that time, I remember that I worked on the case of Walmart coming to South Africa, and there was that condition of developing local businesses as one of the reasons to allow them to get to South Africa. And when I did the research in Limpopo, I made a similar recommendation that if there are some conditions that is made so that supermarkets can meet smallholders halfway, then it will be beneficial to smallholders and to local economic development. And the impact of supermarkets on spaza shops depend on a number of factors, which includes the location of the spaza shop itself, the type of supermarket we are dealing with, because not all supermarkets have the same attitude towards spaza shops and towards local economic development. And that is a given, is observable as well. And it also depends on the strategies of the spaza shop owners. And when I talk about strategies, it goes beyond simply the decision that the spaza shop makes, because those decisions come from certain endowments. If the spaza shop owners do not have the relevant skills to take advantage of opportunities that present themselves, they will not be able to take advantage of that. And so that needs to be actively encouraged by policy measures. So what I'm saying here is that there is no one size fits all in this endeavor. Now, let me shift my attention from the competitive dynamics of spaza shops and supermarkets to another angle, which is competitive dynamics of spaza shops and foreign-owned businesses. The survey I alluded to also showed that approximately 80% of spaza shops in most areas are foreign-owned, which means that very few are local-owned, about 20%. And if we look at the attrition rate, the rate at which spaza shops have been exiting, and we've also seen that while the graph I showed you before about the dynamics of entry-exit, old number 2012 versus new number 2017, what was noticed there is that those exits were largely South African-owned spaza shops. Foreign-owned spaza shops were relatively unchanged, which means that foreign-owned spaza shops are more resilient than South African-owned spaza shops. And I'm saying that we don't have current information when some survey might need to be done, but what we know is that given that attrition rate, it might even be fewer foreign-owned spaza shops that, South African-owned spaza shops that are enduring even at this time post-COVID, because I don't think that some significant research has been done post-COVID in terms of these dynamics. At the same time, consumers prefer foreign-owned spaza shops, and it is for good reasons, which I will show later. 75% of consumers that were interviewed reported that they have proximity to foreign-owned spaza shops, compared to 64% having proximity to local-owned spaza shops. And it is also known that foreign-owned spaza shops are perceived to have cheaper prices. I don't have exact numbers, but literature shows that foreign-owned spaza shop pricing, they have pricing advantage. They are more price competitive compared to locally owned spaza shops. And I will explain some of the reasons later why it is like that from literature and from data. Now, here is the data. 50% of respondents prefer foreign-owned, while 20% prefer local-owned. So there are reasons for that. The main reason is that low prices. The consumers reported that foreign-owned spaza shops have lower prices than locally owned spaza shops, South African-owned spaza shops. 25% says proximity. When we'll be talking about lessons learned, we'll talk about proximity, because this proximity is not just the fact that foreign-owned spaza shops are close to the population. It also stems from the fact that foreign-owned spaza shops do quite some business research. They understand the landscape before they set business. And they are able to they are flexible in efficient use of resources, particularly making use of containers to be able to set up, or erecting to be able to set up where it is most profitable. And that is the meaning of proximity. It's not just proximity, but it is relevant proximity. Then there is convenience. Foreign-owned spaza shops are able to be flexible to make shopping experience quite convenient, and credit sales, of course, which we've spoken about. But significantly, although only 10%, but it's equally significant, that is always stock. So when a consumer comes to a spaza shop, what they hope to get, they find it in foreign-owned shops. But in the South African-owned shops, there are times that they will want to get something, but they will not find what they wanted. And that drives them to foreign-owned shops. So the question here is, why is it like this? Why do we have this picture? We have the role of foreign social capital, which I'll talk again in more detail later. But most importantly, skills. Business skills are very important, and foreign-owned spaza shops do have these skills. They have the skills, they learn it, and they have it also by experience from where they're coming from and from networking. And I'm going to point to the fact that the whole thing boils down to social capital. Social capital is able to connect you to various opportunities in terms of inputs to set up, but it's also able to connect you to networking for marketing and so on. The next thing, what I wanted to say, just to mention here, is that there was also a Competition Commission inquiry that conducted a survey, and they had 472 foreign-owned shops divided into different nationalities, and they employed 69% of South Africans, but they also found 342 local-owned spaza shops employing about 332 South Africans. So in terms of employment of South Africans, there is a great deal of disparity there as well, that South African-owned spaza shops are likely to employ more South Africans than foreign-owned spaza shops. And that is also a fact that is in data. Now, I've pointed to these challenges. I'm going to talk about other challenges before we turn to lessons learned, where I will talk more about social capital, the role of social capital and other aspects. But other challenges are limited access to capital and credit. Particularly local South African-owned spaza shops or spaza shop owners do not have adequate access to capital and credit. And there had been some rumors that foreign spaza shop owners do have support from their home government, but that rumor is unfounded. What is the strength about foreign-owned spaza shop owners in terms of capital and credit is social capital and networking. They have something that is akin to Stokvel, but is geared towards business development. And that is a culture that they import from their home country. That is the way it functions out elsewhere. When I say elsewhere or international best practices, we're talking about the rest of Africa. So when it comes to raising capital, foreigners are better at organizing themselves and contributing resources and setting up anybody from their clan. It's usually not a country thing, but a clan thing when they find themselves together. And that is where the strength, a lot of the strength of foreign-owned spaza shops and foreign-owned small businesses really lie. The second challenge that spaza shops are facing is inadequate infrastructure. And you know the spatial planning of South Africa is still really the borrowing from apartheid era, where you have very good infrastructure in good suburbs, more affluent suburbs, but when you go to townships, you don't have infrastructure. That in itself poses extra logistical costs. It takes time, it takes extra money, to transport resources, transport inputs that have been purchased from other places to a township. But there's also the risk relating to crime and security concern, which is heightened in townships that we all know that affects spaza shops. Because of that, it affects not only loss of capital, loss of material, but also operating time. What we have been witnessing in most townships with the increase in theft, the increase in vandalism, the increase in shootings and so on, have actually affected the freedom of operation in late hours. Remember, I indicated earlier that one of the key advantages that spaza shops take when it comes to operation is late operation, which supermarket chains are eating into. You don't find the kind of crime rate that exists in townships. You don't find them in affluent areas and malls where supermarkets are, because there is collective security. And supermarkets are increasingly extending their trading hours, and that is eating into spaza shop time. So that the security issues and crime issues are a big portion of why spaza shops do fail. Then there is the issue of regulatory compliance. Think that there have been some inroads in making progress in helping the informal sector be compliant with municipal bylaws, but more still needs to be done. Skills, business administration skills, understanding regulatory and tax policies, simple marketing and financial skills, and customer service skills. Customer service skills, very important. Because the survey that I quoted to you and I gave you some figures suggests that consumers, South African consumers, prefer foreign spaza shops. And a good part of it is customer service skills, in addition to other skills and knowledge of business. Then we have supply chain challenges, which I've spoken about before, that it is very difficult for spaza shop owners to access supplies. Not only difficult, it is also very costly in transporting the supplies, because they have to bear the transport costs and get the goods to where they are. We have socioeconomic factors because of their location. They are located in areas of low disposable income, unemployment, extremely poor people. That influence demand affecting spaza shops' growth potentials. And poverty by nature, extreme poverty where spaza shops operate, do affect spaza shop performance in the sense that they are actually forced to sell on credit. Selling on credit is not something that they really like, but they don't have option because they have to sell on credit. We know that well-established businesses, formal businesses do sell on credit, but their credit terms, their credits are less risky than the credits of spaza shops. And therefore, spaza shops are at risk of attrition and collapsing by reason of the way they do business. Let's look at lessons from elsewhere, forming partnerships. Spaza shop owners have to have good networking abilities with upstream and downstream providers of services. And that partnership is what really helps shop owners thrive. Now, the challenges of supermarkets, when we talk about international best practices, should be quite careful, because the things that I'm presenting are largely from the rest of Africa. But the fierceness of supermarket competition in South Africa is far higher than the rest of Africa. In the rest of Africa and many other African countries, the economy really depends on smaller shops, smaller retail shops, which are your equivalent of spaza shops. And therefore, that is what they know, and they do it as business. They have less competition. The only competition is amongst themselves. Then you have upgrading their skills. They're always learning new things and taking courses in an informal manner to learn new things and upgrade what they are doing. Now, using technology, this is very important post-COVID. We know that during COVID, there was lockdown and people were still shopping. You need to look at what were the drivers of shopping behavior and sales during COVID. It was online and the use of technology. And that is when deliveries, online purchases really skyrocketed. And I want to say that locally owned spaza shops are not yet up to par. Their digital skills need to be upgraded. They need to be trained to be able to take advantage of online advertisement and online sales. But from my own observation, I see that foreign-owned spaza shops are getting into that space quite significantly. If you go to Facebook, you go to social media, and you go to applications, they are really taking advantage of that quite strongly. And if we take leverage on technology to help them to be ahead of the game, I think that it would be a very good thing. Then we have customer focus, which I've spoken about before. I was in one African country, I think 3 months ago. So I was in the shop to buy something, and I heard the person there telling another person that the customer is king. And that reflected in my mind about the way people who understand business and they understand customer behavior treat customers. And that comes not accidentally, it comes through skills development and training. Competitive prices, yes. Marketing, businesses, as I've spoken about. What lessons can we learn from foreign-owned businesses? Now, when we talk about lessons from elsewhere, lessons, international best practice, we shouldn't forget that foreign-owned spaza shops are international best practices that have been imported into South Africa, which means that there should be active policy measures to learn from the best practice that are right in front of our nostrils here in South Africa. I can give one example. I think it was in 2009, I was conducting research for the CSIR, and I was studying the relationship between large cane growers and small cane growers. And that was a very good, one of the few successes in those days of land reform in KZN, where both the large growers and the small growers came together, and they were able to empower the small growers because they had a common purpose to supply the sugar mills. And it takes systematic study to uncover the synergies that might exist between foreign-owned and local-owned, and to try to bring those advantages of foreign-owned spaza shops to local-owned spaza shops. And unfortunately, you cannot take and give. It has to be by learning and impartation of knowledge. And therefore, there should be some degree of collaboration between them. And it has to be done so consciously, so that there is that skills transfer for locally owned spaza shops to be able to thrive. I think that most of the practices, like I mentioned before, of foreign-owned spaza shops are things that can easily be imparted to locally owned spaza shops if there is collaboration and cohesion. And this is coming because post-apartheid South African social capital has really fallen tremendously. The relationship between fellow South Africans have broken down quite significantly, and that explains most of the crime and the insecurity and the murder rates that we observe around. And it's something that government has to have a particularly purposeful intervention to be able to rebuild that trust You need to, for you to understand what I'm talking about, there are in databases of survey, they ask the question of, do you trust your community? Do you trust your neighbor? And so on. That trust level is the crude measure of social capital. It has fallen significantly in South Africa. And that then means that if we are expecting that spaza shop owners should collaborate together and be able to take advantage of the kind of things that foreign-owned spaza shops are doing, then they won't succeed because of lack of trust among South Africans. I don't have to go far. Look at the taxi industry, for example. You will see that in the taxi industry, that is a microcosm. That one is coming to light because it is in the public, but it's a microcosm of what is happening when trust is lost among communities. And that to me is one of the key things, because the networking, the social capital, what I call, so in economics we call social capital, it's able to bring a group of buyers together. It makes cooperatives work. It's able to lead group of buyers to be able to negotiate better prices, to act somewhat like supermarkets. The buying power that supermarkets have, when buyers come together, they can acquire the same buying power. And that is one of the key advantages of foreign-owned spaza shops. When they come together also, they have something that is akin to Stockfell that help them to raise capital. And they have entrepreneurship practices, the risk-taking, they are risk-takers. And risk-taking is not really as much inborn as your environment impacts on you. So the environment needs to teach players about risk-taking, innovative use of resources. Yes, please, sorry.
I'm gonna ask that we get to conclude.
Yes, I'm trying to conclude now. So you have networking and scale, entrepreneurial orientation, finance management, which is part of skills, but geographic location, the study of the environment before placing spaza shops, lessons from foreign-owned, these are the lessons from foreign-owned businesses. And let me talk about socioeconomic factors, particularly deep pocket through social networking, and as opposed to the idea that it is home country that supports. Then the fact that they are mostly focused on their business, they really take their businesses seriously. They are away from home and therefore less distracted, and they take the spaza shop business as business to generate resources. They have, that is what they have, and they cannot do without. So that was my conclusion. And these slides are the different documents that I have consulted, starting with my own documents, then go to other literature that I have consulted. I will not go. I will not read them out, but I put them there so as to help us to understand that the knowledge came from existing literature. And I'm hoping that I will learn a lot from those who are here. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof, for a very insightful presentation. It is thought-provoking, and it brings out into the fore some, glaring policy gaps that we may need to start thinking about, especially from the side of the state. But what I also appreciate about the presentation is the fact that, when you are on the ground, for some of us who are on the ground, they complain, especially from the local owned spaza shops. It's not so much about the big supermarkets, yet they are playing a huge role in terms of squeezing them in, into the advantages that they used to have before, as per the presentation that you have delivered. It's more now, the focus becomes more of a foreign national who is next to me, who is taking business away from me. The most important thing that then we may need to do is, basically to strike a balance to say, to what extent can we then try to, as you correctly put it, bring synergies and linkages between the two, such that there's learning that needs to happen to make sure that our very own local spaza shops are able to trade successfully as their foreign national counterpart. Now that brings me to the next presenter, because what's happening is that we're going to have all the presentations and then questions are going to be asked after. The next presenter is Mr. Ndwandwe. Mr. Ndwandwe, Peter Ndwandwe, he is representing the Department of Home Affairs. And really the reason why we thought, let us also bring this, it was just to try and strike that balance to say, really, are foreign nationals really a problem, you know, in the space of sponsorship? Or and your presentation has correctly pointed out the fact that there's lessons that we can actually learn, but we equally need to appreciate the fact that the trust between the foreigners and the locals, I mean, foreign nationals and locals has really broken so severely such that it would even become so difficult to integrate the two. But from the policy measures, the policy perspective, what do we do? But also, what do we also do about these big retailers who are there? They have been welcomed. Yes, development, it's okay, it's welcomed, but the fact that there seem to be, you know, this lack of counterbalancing to ensure that we support sponsorship. But maybe just to bring into the fore this, I think this is very important because we're in the space, we are in this platform to indicate that as the Gauteng Provincial Department, we have established that relationship. For example, with Pick and Pay, there are spaza shops that have got a model of Pick and Pay in different communities. Are they enough? But we've also established another program that seeks to support spaza shops. You boost them in terms of, you know, business model that they use, the look and feel, infrastructure support. But the question is, like I've indicated earlier, is that sufficient? But this presentation, it brings out a lot more lessons that one has to consider, especially from the policy perspective. So with that being said, Mr. Ndwandwe is then going to be giving us from the Immigration Act perspective to say, what are the issues? Do we really have to worry about each and every foreign national that we see in the country? I don't think so, because there's legislation and we are a country that has to act within the law. And what is it that the laws are telling us, you know, in the space? So Mr. Ndwandwe, I'm just gonna be allowing you to come through. Is your presentation ready? Are we ready with Mr. Ndwandwe's presentation?
Yes, good afternoon.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Yes, thanks a lot. Thanks. I would like to greet everyone in the house. Professor, Program Director, DDGs, if he is still present, and the colleagues that are there, business owners. I would say protocol, in short, protocol observed. Thank you very much for inviting us within the same webinar. I would like to start first with just a short introduction. I'm from the Department of Home Affairs, which is a national department. As you are aware, that government has 3 spheres. We have national government, provincial, and local government. So basically what we are talking about something that happens at the local level. Nevertheless, because government is just one, I think I would like to appreciate the provincial government to take up this initiative. So on the other hand, you recall that the Department of Home Affairs has mandated, and within here, I've got 62 slides, which really poses a challenges because time frame has to be adhered to. So what I did, I just highlighted some of the important ones. For example, I highlighted the introduction. It's first. I think can we go to introduction first? Introduction, go down. No, go down. Go down. There's introduction. Yes, introduction. Introduction. Okay, it's not following sequentially. As the can you see me?
Introduction in the previous slide. I think Fred, go back. I saw introduction there.
You saw introduction. It's very important.
Yes.
Am I audible enough to the
Yes,
to the
yes,
viewers?
you are.
Much appreciated. And in picture, do the audience see me? Yes, then.
I think while he's
Introduction.
trying to get to the introduction, Mr. Nono, can you then talk over your presentation?
All right,
in the
that's fine. Thank you very much. Department of Home Affairs is a department that is not like working with like other departments. If the Department of Home Affairs has frustrated you, you cannot go to elsewhere. That is why we have what we have Learning Academy. In the Department of Home Affairs, we are trying to meet the standards of the Constitution as it per se, because I think in 1994, our Honorable Nelson Mandela has made a history. So most of our people, they believe that when they come to South Africa, at least they belong, of which it is true. So as Home Affairs, we wanted to actually welcome every individual. The only thing that we are having a problem with, those who fail to comply. So probably today, I just want to touch on the issue of identity. Identity, as you know, we're a diverse country. It's still a challenge within South Africans themselves. When foreign nationals came into our shores, in fact, I think even if you want to go to university, there's a program called orientation. You need to be taken around the environment to be shown this is a canteen, this is toilet, this is what. So you go around and then you know the environment itself. So South Africa, when we took over in 1994, there was no orientation. So the flocking, in fact, most of the foreign nationals coming to South Africa, it started in 1994, 95, going down up until today. So in a nutshell, what happened is that 1991, we had no Immigration Act in places. We had what we call Aliens Control Act. Thereafter, in 1994, when we took over, Constitution was not yet up and running. 1996, that's the Act of 108 of 1996, which is Constitution, which is the supreme law of the country, start kicking in. Then 1997, we started actually exempting Mozambicans that were here in South Africa in a long term. Now, 1998, that's where we started now to have Refugee Affair, a Refugee Act of 130 of 1998. That is why we tried to establish centers in Crown Mines, in you name it, in Pretoria, and then in Johannesburg. So seeing that we're trying to cope with the influx of people that are coming to the country. And mind you, Immigration Act was not kicked in at that particular time. Then 2022, 2000. Must go if the law. So 2004, chronologically, where, yes, I was trying to break down chronologically where we started as the department. So under Immigration Act, most foreign nationals, they are controlled by it. Foreign national, I must say, I think they are not a threat to South Africa. The only issue is the issue of compliance. Now, I don't know whether there's a need to define who's a foreigner, who's not a foreigner, because in our midst, they differ in terms of category. We've got asylum seekers, we've got foreign nationals, we've got refugee, and then we've got permanent resident holders, and we've got economic migrant. So amongst all the category of people, that's where the problem comes. Should they comply? They don't have any problem at all. They need to be integrated. I think Professor Nicholas highlighted some of the attrition roads. 20% RSA owners, 80% foreign owners. So coming from South Africa with the skills that they presented, I think that I like the way they use the culture. So the culture of business is within their blood. So with us, I think we can copy from them. Can I go to page 1? Am I audible? Can I see the page 1, ma'am? Okay. All right. In the midst of page 1, I think this is what the Department of Home Affairs is tasked. Check. I want to focus on 1, 2, 3. But there are 5 pillars. Yes. You see, secure population register to empower citizens, enable inclusive. Yes. Secure population register to empower citizens, enable inclusive economic development and national security. So this is where we stand, because I think it's one of the outcomes that has been given for Home Affairs as a mandate. So actually the security of individual plays a very important role for us, because we need to identify who comes into our shores, because really, I mean, if a police officer comes to you and arrests you without any form of identification, it's a problem on its own. So you need to identify yourself. So when foreign nationals come to South Africa, we need to know who are they, because our economy needs to grow. That is why we have a critical skill permit. Home Affairs is the only department that can only secure the security of all individuals. Whether you are a foreigner, you are South African, everybody is catered for. And especially the Department of Home Affairs has to actually ensure that at least the citizens of the country taken care of, foreign nationals are taken care of, even the visitors that come to South Africa are taken care of. And there's law in South Africa, and no one is above the law. That is why we actually respect our constitution. Can we go to the next slide, ma'am? All right, so it's just a definition. Who is a foreigner? I think this one is common because we've got the academics there. And then, yeah, no, this is a refugee. Can I go to next page, please? Guiding legislation, yes, thank you. Guiding legislation these are the tools that we use because Immigration Act, as it started in 2002, and then we keep on upgrading it. And it is the one that is the tool that we utilize to ensure that all things are being controlled in terms of the Immigration Act. But those Immigration Act caters for those who have permits. If you are having a permit that maybe say business permit or study permits, spousal permit, because some of the foreign nationals, we don't have a policy when it comes to marriage. You can marry whoever you like, is no problem. The only thing that it's a compliance, because each and every permit, it comes with its own regulation. We need to ensure that at least you meet the requirement. Once you meet it, and then you are done. So the only thing that now is a challenge, which is within us, is that the Immigration Act and the Refugee Act is one of the two challenges that poses a threat to us as our security, because now if you come as a foreigner, you come to visit. Immediately when you are inside the country, that's where you change the status of your course. And then you are no longer a visitor. You want to apply for general work permit. You want to apply for a work permit. That is one of the changes that has been made by the guiding legislation to say, nowadays, what you do now, you have to actually apply from the country of origin. That's a visa. Then you get a visa from your country of origin. When you come inside South Africa, we take you as a permanent resident holder. That's where we can regulate. But even vetting itself, we need to ensure that at least if we integrate you, do we integrate the person that is going to assist us growing the economy? So foreign nationals, I must say, they actually do best. They do actually grow economy. But the only thing that was happening is that most South Africans, because like I said, we were caught up in a way whereby orientation was not actually something that was, it's my view, it's something that was not maybe foreseen, because South Africans, spaza shops, when they buy, they were they were buying in as individual. They were not buying as a group and as a collective, even if to get a discount in that light. But nevertheless, I think the lesson learned that Professor is alluded to, it's one of the things that at least it will highlight, because obviously some of the solution, even if we are not aware, they're already there. It's just the question of government programs that maybe must be tapped into so that we can go to. Can I get another slide, ma'am? Okay, and then pass this one again, another slide. I'm just touching on the relevant one. Yes, IMS stands for Immigration Management Services. So this is our mandate as you are on the ground. Immigration facilitation, development of strategies, policies and procedure, control of movement. As you know that we've got about 72 ports of entries. So OR Tambo, your Lanzeria Airport, your Rand Airport, you come through and then we need to actually check who's coming to us. And then the reception of asylum seekers, because there's a difference between a permanent resident holder and an asylum seeker. If you are an asylum seeker, yes, you are in the country of sojourn temporarily. You are here on temporal means. Then in other words, you move from section 22, you are going to obtain a section 24, which is a recognized refugee status. But in permitting has been now controlled in outside missions. That is why now, because I think it's a lesson learned that normally we discovered that when we give visas inside South Africa, people change the status. And then it becomes a problem whereby now we're no longer actually able to control. But now I think this one, we have BMA, which has been established already. I think when you come and join us, you'll be coming as a person that has been vetted to actually contribute into our struggle, as you know where we come from. Right. The next slide, please. Yeah, port of entry. Now that one, I'm not going to touch too much on it because look, the other one, there's another slide, please, ma'am. Yes, I think this one was established in 2014, BMA. The BMA, I think there was this criticism that, hey, Home Affairs is having porous borders. And people were not aware that the issue of foreign national is not only for Home Affairs. It's an issue that affect all South Africans. That is why we have these dynamics within us, because the perception behind the thinking is that foreign belongs to Home Affairs, which is not. Foreign nationals are human beings like everybody else. The issue here is the issue of perceptions. If I look at my sister and my brother, I need to acknowledge that is my brother from another mother. But the only thing that we don't like or we actually fight for is the element of not behaving properly. If you come into the South Africa, then you start doing wrong things and so forth, you tarnish the image of other foreign nationals that are trying to assist us. It's a big problem. You go to Diepsloop, for example, there are those foreign nationals that are doing their best to actually, in fact, they're even good in farming. I think Dr. I really commend the research that he has made, because actually business skill comes to the fore, social capital, and even networking itself, because to us, we have learned something that we're not aware to foreign nationals. And even if the professor and the DDG spoke about the digitalization, I think it's one of the key that we are heading to. So our own South Africans, general dealers, and our foreign national, they need to come together. There's no way that they're going to work in isolation. That is my take. Next slide, please, ma'am. No, this one is permitting. Permitting, I think I've touched on it because that's where the most changes came. And I think it not actually make people happy, because in fact, the visas emanated from TRP. We have abbreviation called temporary resident permit. So the temporary resident permit was allowing individuals to come to visit to South Africa on temporary basis. Now, some of the individuals that were coming into South Africa, they come as visitors, but because South Africa maybe is another place that they they enjoy to be, they ended up overstaying. They no longer actually want to go back. As a result, they are blacklisted. Now, the visa issue is that now you no longer go to South Africa before the embassy or your mission approves your visa to be in South Africa, so that at least we can actually assist you further. And then you'll decide when you are here, you want to continue staying in South Africa, or you want to go back, because we do allow the tourism to come, and we do allow all the people to come here, because actually the much as was seen, it might be a question of saying South Africans maybe were caught up not ready. Skill development is one of the basic things that at least we need to tap in. Infrastructure that is dilapidating the infrastructure, and then that's because in terms of the Immigration Act, you remember what happened. There's a section called Section 38 that has a really impact on all foreign nationals, especially those who are having spaza shops into the townships. Because now remember what happened, that there was this belief that foreign nationals, when they come or they tap into South Africa, they came to take their wife, they came to take their jobs. That was just a mere perception. It was not true. So now the perception that South Africans have and the foreign nationals, we come from different background. I'm a South African, grew up in South Africa. I don't know how to run business. Now somebody came into my shores, knows how to run business. Now somewhere, somehow, it becomes like a part of a jealousy. But nevertheless, jealousy cannot take you anywhere. What will needs to be done, it's a question of learning, because learning takes place every day. Even if you don't have to be shy. If you don't know, you don't know. You need to empower yourself up until maybe you get it right. Next slide, please, ma'am. Oh, no, these are just showing up. You remember when it's always around April, December, we have a lot of, look, like I stated earlier, we have about 72 ports of entries. So we focus on the main ports of entries that are actually working. You go to Beitbridge, you go to Golela, you go to all Mahamba, all those different ports of entry. Because by the way, people use the ports of entry. Sometimes they use airports. They also use the harbors. You go to Durban, you go to Cape Town. It's one of those landing area, and then you come into South Africa. So now South Africa, most of the people, they like to come to South Africa. It becomes a challenge to the government of the day, because the government of the day must ensure that at least when he goes to make a budget speech, in fact, census must come to our shores to check, because in only 2012 and 13, 13.5 million foreign nationals that are visiting South Africa. So you can see quite a number. So when you come to your budget, how are you going to ensure that at least if they are not counted, because our NPA, National Population Register, is the one that actually tells us how many South Africans are within the space. Now we need to count as well to get the foreign nationals, which we have that number. But now some of the foreign nationals, in fact, the regulation must be such that at least we actually have reliable people that actually, if we say we integrate these people into business, these are the people that actually will stick to actually grow our economy. Next slide, ma'am. No, Inspector Don, this is just a structure, inspector structure. It started from head office, because what happened, we've got two types of inspectorate. We've got, that's it written in the provincial structure, we've got the head office structure. So next slide. The provincial inspectorate is the one that actually conduct the business on the spaza shops. So an investigation that is conducted, in fact, it's like a survey to check actually who's actually owning this spaza shop. What we discovered, that we discovered to some of our joint operations, we discovered some of the spaza shop that foreign nationals own. They are not their actual owners. They are workers there, because what happened, the owners, every now and then you find that they are in town. You go to another area, and then after 3 months, 2 months, you find that there's a new guy that now is in that particular shop, as spaza shop. And this thing, I think it's a trend, because I discovered it in 2013 when I started populating to check how many foreign nationals are in the townships. So it was a very overwhelming exercise. I discovered some of the cartels that was taking place, because it's very shocking in news, because in Midlands itself, those old grannies that were actually old enough into their houses, they were being coined out because somebody will come and say, I want to do business trade here, but please, I just put my shack outside because City of Johannesburg can able to rezone the place, which is smaller, because most plaza shops are like tuck shops. They are very small in sizes and they don't make much money. But then you find that there's a contractual agreement that is being signed by both parties. Now, the issue here is that when the term comes, now it's a problem whereby those grannies now they'll be evicted out of the house and say, no, they take over. So some of the things that at least the initiative, the good that people think and come up with, sometimes it gets spoiled by those people who actually go for front in manipulating the system. Next slide, please, ma'am. Yeah, these are just key section of Immigration Act. You see the previous slides, I highlighted the Legislative, your Identification Act, your Refugee Act, your Immigration Act. They were just those legislative tools that we are using to actually to control the in and out. Here it's just that section, and those are also part of the regulation, because when we have to admit you, we have to know inside your passport with a round stamp, and when you depart, we have to put that rectangular stamp that you are actually here in South Africa. So it shows that South Africa is we are regulating. So most of you guys, it's not a question that you need to be scared. Maybe we will change over time. You don't have to scare. Police are here. The law is here. So please, I mean, look, some of the best, Mbezuma, for example, Mbezuma is not a South African. I think it's from Zambia or else. And then there's also one from Senegal. They were actually, we do need you. We do need you because it's one country. And then that is why we don't use a singular name to say, my South Africa. I cannot claim it as an own, my South Africa. We say our country. So it shows that we share the space, we share the country. So your contribution, it's much appreciated. Next slide, please, ma'am. No, this is just business inspection. You remember that there's this group called Dudula when they go there, and then they wanted to actually make sure that all businesses must actually employ South Africans, because now there was this belief that South African employment has gone up in such a way that they do need now foreign national to actually come and assist and make a balance. But actually, it's a labor department that has to give us a benchmark to check maybe what skill are we running short of in South Africa? What is it that we needed to dwell on? For example, there was this program, I think we had a quota work permit that was attracting most of the Zimbabweans teachers, maths and science teachers that came into our shores. It actually empowers us. So somewhere, it tells you that I think there's a lot of things that needs to be done. Our educational structure needs to come into the force, because some of the things that we're running short of, we need to outsource somewhere else. So the business sectors need to make a balance. I think there was still, I think, minister that highlighted in 2014 that at least the ratio must be 60 to 40. South African employed, 60% employed, South African 60% must be employed, 40% at least must be foreign nationals. So can you see now the ratio now has changed now. Instead, look at the figure that here under attrition rate, 80% foreign owned. Now, in other words, foreign national, it's part of a domination. Now, if ever all foreigners, they have business in South Africa, it's going to be a vice versa. All South Africans are going to work for foreign nationals now, which is, there's nothing wrong with it. The only thing that needs to happen is that maybe it's a request that in our Professor Nicholas, to ensure that as much as we try to build, if I may call it African Renaissance, maybe so. It's a question of bringing the skills together so that at least we assist where there is a need. Next slide, ma'am. I think that one it's about the last one now. No, this one just passed. It's just arrest and procedure, and that's one. Also, this is just an arrest.
Mr. Ndwandwe, we will need to conclude as well.
Yes, I think I'm probably done, ma'am. There's another last one that I need to check. Yeah, proceed, ma'am. Just jump to proceed. You see, I put it in details because there are about 62 slides. That is why now I'm just taking this by this because, but at least for information, at least I will share with you. I'll leave you with the whole slides and then we'll go through it. And then the last one, look, the one this slide, these are the factors. I think they talk about challenges of spaza shops. Now the challenges that we experience for bail for illegal immigrants. You remember what happened? I'm the one who normally opposes the bail when it comes to court. There are foreign nationals that at least they spoil the whole, you see one rotten potato spoil the whole bread. So the perception that if one foreigner is found doing wrong things, and then everybody conclude that all foreigners are like that, it's a misconception, ma'am. It's not actually true, because through your research, at least you find there are those foreign nationals that are actually keen, willing to actually grow our country. So let it be. And then next one, ma'am. That's it. The last one. I think I'm about to finish, ma'am. I'm so sorry about taking more of your time.
That is the last slide.
one.
This is the last slide.
This one, okay. You see, this last slide that I'm talking about, the last slide was actually having my numbers, not even numbers. I think I'll share with the program director so that at least we can engage in more sense. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ndwandwe, for their presentation that has actually brought into the light some important issues. Let me just indicate high level. The presentation has indicated, I think one of the major core, the crux of where the problem started. The problem started with the fact that when we opened up in 1994, the country was not orientated that we are now going to be welcoming our brothers and sisters from the other parts of the continent. I think that's what the presentation indicated that. And because of that, we have seen, pressure coming, especially from our locals, who are then indicating that they are faced with stiff competition. So you also point to the issues around perception in terms of, the foreign nationals, to say that yes, not everyone, not all potatoes are rotten. But overall, your presentation is indicating an issue around integration, to say that, and this is linked to what Professor Ngepa has also alluded to when he was presenting, issues around, integrating, the two foreign, two spaza shop owners, the locals and foreigners, because there is lessons to be learned. There is a room, for networking. There's a room for sharing of insights, knowledge, sharing of skills. And that's what your presentation is outlining. But your presentation has also brought into the fore some of the real truth about this issue. It's that one of when you indicated the issue around the survey that you've done, and you're indicating the challenges that locals are faced with, especially those that have leased out their own properties to their foreign counterparts, spaza shop owners, and now properties are being taken away. I mean, that's reality. That's the truth of the matter. And it would be very interesting to see how is Home Affairs dealing with all these issues. But with that being said, let me also give the opportunity so that we can have time to engage. We're going to have some 30-minute time to engage. Let me open up now and allow Mr. Brian Makwaiba to step in. So the biography of Mr. Brian Makwaiba is that he's the CEO and a co-founder of the Vukela platform, an e-commerce and fintech platform structured to support the entire trading ecosystem within the informal sector. With extensive experience in innovation and brand building, and having previously named as one of the top 50 youth entrepreneurs in South Africa in 2015, He's also been named one of the top 15 youth entrepreneurs in Africa for 2016. He has been named an Innovator of the Year in 2017, as well as Standard Bank Rising Star 2018, and was one of the top 20 business heroes in Jack Ma Africa's Netpreneur Prize 2019. Brian is also a co-founder of the I Am Image Pty Ltd, a creative agency that helps create access to township market, access to the township market to big business and access to big business for the township market. I Am Image won the Josie My Beginning competition 2016, Innovation Hub Gate competition 2016, Da Vinci Black Canvas International Award for Sustainability, as well as Gauteng Township Entrepreneurship Awards in 2018 for the Vukela concept. Vukela won the SAB Foundation Awards 2017 and the Da Vinci Award for the Best Innovation Concept in 2017. Vukela also won the Visa Everywhere initiative for South Africa in 2023. Brian recently funded ALData, an information and insights entity that provides credit scoring for the informal sector and the unbanked. The entity has plans to build credit bureau for this market. So, Mr. Brian, we are looking forward to you giving us some of the models that you are implementing to be able to support the spaza shop system in the entire value chain. Over to you, sir.
Well, thank you very much. Good afternoon, and thank you for having me. So, as we've mentioned, Vulega is a platform that seeks to essentially build sustainable informal businesses, and part of these informal businesses are spaza shops. And there are a couple of issues or problems that spaza shops have that have already been spoken about by the previous presenters. So I'll just touch on a couple of those, and I'll touch on the solutions that we've created on our side to actually assist or help these spaza shops to be competitive and to, essentially build sustainable businesses. Please move to the next slide. Firstly, we have created a platform or a multi-channel platform for these shop owners to be able to actually order goods. Usually, when they order goods, they have to go out of their shops and they have to go to like the wholesalers, and in doing that, they lose out on trading time. And not only that, they also do not have a see-through with regards to what it is that the pricing that they'll get today is, apart from the board sheets or the pamphlets that they would have. They also do not have a see-through on whether products are available there or not. The next slide. The four big problems that we have picked up for spaza shops mostly is the fact that, like I've said, because they work in silos or they work alone, they do not have the bargaining power to actually compete or to come together and negotiate prices that make them competitive, or to get pricing cheaper so that they can sell to their consumers cheaper. The second part of it is that those shops are mostly cash-based. So they receive cash from their customers and they deal in cash. When they do this, they do not have a trading or a transactional history, which is, they don't have a digital footprint that shows how much money they've made or how much goods they've passed through their shop, which means that no traditional lenders are able to give them any type of funding or credit, because essentially they're working off their word and they've got no see-through on what it is that they're selling or they're able to actually make on a weekly, monthly basis. Another problem is that the bigger retailers have come into this township space. So bigger retailers with their big buying power and the big pockets that they have come into the space, and they're competing with the spaza shops. The spaza shops are buying products and then having to put a margin on them, but the retailers can actually sell the goods to consumers at prices that the spaza shop owners cannot match. And lastly, because we've identified that a lot of these spaza shops also operate informally, they don't have ways in which they can track how their products are moving within their shops, and they therefore work again informally, apart from operating their business in a way that has got systems. Can we go to the next slide? This is where, like I've mentioned, we come in. So we've created this platform that does a number of things along the value chain. Firstly, we do the bulk buying for the shop owners. We then also provide them with credits. We do the last mile distribution, and we've also created a platform to try and take cash out of the system. The next slide is going to show you how it works. So we take the orders from the informal business owners. As I've said, the orders come through a multi-channel type of way. So firstly, we have agents on the ground. So if we're working in an area, if I can give an example like Soweto, we will get people from Soweto that live within that area to go out and take the orders on behalf of the shop owners. For the shop owners that are a bit more tax savvy, we've got a WhatsApp platform that they then use to actually place the orders that they are actually then going to be ordering. For the people that are more tax savvy, we've got a mobile app. And this mobile app is what they will be able to get from their phones, from the iOS store or from the App Store to place these orders. We then bulk buy these goods directly from the manufacturers. When we are bulk buying these goods from the manufacturers, we are eliminating the fact that these shop owners are working in silos. So if one person orders 5 of the products, another orders 3 and another orders 2. When we are bulk buying 10. And when we bulk buy 10, we negotiate the discount on 10, and then we pass that discount on to the shop owners. The delivery comes through to our warehouse, and we then do the last mile delivery to the shop owner. In doing the last mile delivery to the shop owner, or in doing this whole process, what we have done, what we're doing is we are making sure that the shop owner firstly does not leave his shop to go and place the goods of this orders. We're also making sure that because we've done the aggregation, we're able to give the shop owner the discounted price that he would not have gotten if he has gone there alone. And thirdly, we are giving him the convenience of him being able to trade instead of him going out to actually go and look for those goods. But in doing all of this, what we are also then doing is that we are collecting that transactional information. So we are able to then say the shop owner has ordered this over this frequency of period for this amount of money. And even though they are paying cash, we are building out the credit profile or the credit score for them. After we've built out this credit profile or this credit score, we also then give them credit. So we've started out on a small scale to give credit to these spaza shop owners who usually would not have been able to get credit because there's a lot of red tape when it comes to how it is that they can get credit. And there are a lot of requirements that they might actually meet, but there's bureaucracy on what it is that they're supposed to submit in order for them to get credit. Please go to the next slide. I've just explained this whole process of the different way in which the orders come in, how we then go out and do that last mile delivery. You can go to the next one. Now, in working with the spaza shops over the past couple of years that we've been around, what we've been able to achieve on behalf of the spaza shop owners are 3 main things. The first is that we've been able to save them on average 10% on the goods that it is that they would have bought themselves, which means that they've then got a 13% increase in the profit margins that they make on a daily, weekly, monthly basis based on sales, and also based on the fact that they now have saved time and they haven't left their shops in terms of when they're going to actually go and do these orders. The other big thing is the fact that we've introduced this credit facility or this buy now, pay later facility to people that usually would not have gotten that. And now they've got a transactional history, because once we introduce this facility to them, we are then able to digitally track those payments or what it is that we've given to them. And we take out all of this data and information. After building the score for the shop owner, we are then able to give this to traditional lenders in case the shop owner then wants to develop or get developmental credits or bigger type of credit lines that we cannot give them. Can we please go to the next? In working with Vulega, the credit I've already mentioned for the shop owners, but we also work with the people that live around the community. So as I've mentioned, if we work within a different or a certain type of area, what we do is that we hire people from that area, because there's no one that knows the area like the people that live within that area. And given the high unemployment rates, this is the easiest way for people to actually generate or make money for themselves by going out to work with these spaza shops within that area. What they go out and do is that they don't only go out to help to take orders, but they introduce new programs or that Vulega is a partner in that are a benefit to these spaza shop owners. They also go out to provide some sort of education to the spaza shop owners. As I mentioned, a lot of the spaza shop owners are working informally, but there are ways or smaller or programs that spaza shop owners can be involved in that help them with their finances. And we use these people that work or live within these areas to go and be the people that teach the spaza shop owners. Can we go to the next slide? One of the programs that we are a partner, as I've mentioned, is the SIFA Spaza Support Program. This looks at only locally owned spaza shops that get access to, one, a grant for stock purchases, and secondly, they get access to a revolving credit facility after they've gotten that grant. This means that it gives a boost for the shop owner to say he gets upfront money to buy stock. After he's used this upfront money to buy stock, then he gets a revolving amount of money once he pays that back. And this allows or helps him to build out or to increase his basket size. So if he now has access to this revolving facility, he can now buy for 4,500 Rand more than he would have been able to buy using the cash that he has, because this is the traditional way in which they buy. Traditionally, they buy with what it is that they've got on hand, but by introducing this facility, it's easier to increase that basket, and the frequency of the buying also increases because he can actually sell the products first before he buys, before he actually pays it, and he's now got more money that he makes like off this facility that he's got. And then I think this is probably potentially the last slide. Go to the next one. We've been around for about 5 years now, and a lot of what has been mentioned when the introduction happened is outlined here. There's a couple of partnerships that we are part of to bring in products to spaza shop owners, especially locally owned spaza shop owners, to help them to be sustainable and to help them to actually be more competitive against a lot of the spaza shop owners from outside the country who have the advantages that the local owned spaza shop owners do not have. I think that is the last slide. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brian. I think your presentation is enlightening, also in the sense that it seeks to address challenges that have been presented by the two previous speakers, challenges around bulk buying. You are, in fact, bringing solution to that in terms of bulk buying, saving time and cost for spaza shop owners, but also the issue around training and using technology and allowing them to access credit in the process. So these are some of the solutions that are required on the ground to be able to assist the problem that we have. I may have to then want to understand in terms of accessibility and in terms of it being known across the board by all these spaza shop owners that are affected in terms of their businesses dwindling. I think that would be very important for us to also even see to what extent do we assist to ensure that you reach a wider audience, because really this is a welcome solution. With that being said, I think I'm now going to open up for Q&A. I think we can, really go up until 10 to 1, where I'm then going to be asking Prof. Eita to do our concluding remarks and way forward. So the floor is open. Let's discuss. We've had the three speakers who have presented the literature that is telling us what the challenges are from Prof. Gepa, and then Home Affairs then saying foreign nationals are not really a problem. The problem is compliance and the fact that there was no orientation when they got in here, but the skills support system that they bring into the country is highly welcomed. And we can see by the fact that they are successful. And then Brian saying that, look, here's the solution that we're bringing to the table to address some of the challenges that are being highlighted. So with that, the floor is open. I'm opening up for the floor for the discussions. I do not see hands before me here. I would also ask, I think, Dr. Fred and Dr. Mbu to also assist. And in the meantime, if while we're still waiting for colleagues to ask questions, may I then maybe request the speakers to address some of the things that I've raised. I raised with the Home Affairs issue. For me, it was, okay, I see Zama is there. But for me, it was around the issue of how do we then redress, how do we then reverse this issue around orientation, Mr. Ndwandwe? How do we also, how is, for example, Home Affairs out addressing this issue around the gap that you have identified of issues around property, in really, that locals come in, they're not informed. I mean, local comes in, they list out their properties and only to find that properties later would have to be taken over. But also the issue of social cohesion, because that's also very important. As you correctly point out that the skills that they're bringing, it's very important to taking our economy forward. Also in the spaza shop market. But when I introduced this topic, I said it's a topic of bread and butter issue. So these spaza shops are found in communities where they were originally established. And now there's the issue of stiff competition, which is really causing some tension, between us as locals and foreign nationals. And really, when you look at it from the literature perspective, from the presentations that have come here, the issue here is that there is a room for the two groups to work together. There's a room for the intervention, for the measures to be incorporated and to create proper networks such that the system becomes functional. We can use that as the best case studies, as Prof has indicated. But how do we then reverse the situation right now? I think that's my question for Mr. Ndwandwe. Now, yes, I think let me close at that so that we give other people the opportunity. Zama, after that, I think let me allow Zama to also ask their question. If you can indicate who your question is directed to, Zama.
Okay, hi. I'm not sure, but it's just a question. Maybe you can also maybe help with that question. It's just a general question.
Yes, go ahead, Zama.
Okay, so as an advocate for inclusive economic development and entrepreneurship within underrepresented communities, I'm interested in understanding how information dissemination is being addressed for township entrepreneurs. It is crucial that these entrepreneurs have access to resources, have access to opportunities and knowledge that can help foster their growth and success. So I would greatly appreciate it if you could provide me with insight into the initiatives or programs currently implemented to ensure that information reaches township entrepreneurs effectively. So I'm interested in learning about any workshops, any seminars or training sessions organized specifically for township entrepreneurs, any online platforms or websites or portals dedicated to provide relevant information to township entrepreneurs, any collaborations or partnerships with local organizations, business associations, or government bodies to facilitate information sharing, any publication, newsletters, or communication channels utilized to disseminate important updates and resources to township entrepreneurs. So any mentorship programs or coaching programs that are there to support any upcoming entrepreneurs in the township, especially the local entrepreneurs. So I just need to know if there any initiative or strategies in place to ensure that township entrepreneurs get the relevant and the essential information pertaining to all these issues that have been discussed. Thank you.
Thank you, Zama. Paul, you're next.
Thank you
Okay,
very much for the opportunity. It's been a very insightful workshop that you guys brought to us. The thing that I'd like to find out, it's various things, but I'm just going to reduce it to two. Number one is the 5 million minimum investment for foreigners that comes into our country. That will also help alleviate or limit the competition factor, cancel that out with our township people who doesn't have money, like foreigners who comes here and they put money together and they totally overthrown and took control and have a monopoly on our spaza shops. How do we implement that law, or is that law now null and void? Can't we apply that to our spaza shops in our communities so that our people can at least have ownership? Or mostly locals go into spaza shops. In my community where I'm at right now, is that we are almost 95% foreign owned on spaza shops. As where I grew up in this community. And our locals owned that type of businesses, and they raised their families, and they were quite lucrative and nice, affluent. But now we have a problem. How do we rectify it? Yes, can't we use that 5 million rand threshold and see if we can salvage those businesses back to our people or get them more involved? And number two thing, Brian, I really appreciate what you have done. Everybody involved in that program. It's a great program. I just like to find out how are we going to help the startup guys who are willing to come back into the spaza shop arena. Can we look at them as well? Because currently, as I've stated, in my community, they have like vanished, and we just want to revive them. How can you give us guidelines as to go about reviving our tuck shops, our spaza shops in our community? Thank you.
thank you so much, Paul. I would also want to check before I bring Rufilwe. I think there is Rofiki. Okay, Rofiki Rams, and apologies if I may be calling that incorrectly. But before I bring them on board, Paul, I also would like to ask you a question, which I'm going to. Am I audible? Okay. I also would like to ask you a question regarding what you just said, because the idea here is also to bring solutions into the table. We need to know what could be the possible solutions as we're engaging, hence this engagement. So the 95% foreign-owned spaza shop has got everything to do with property, the leasing and renting of property by communities, right? So I believe that someone who's a foreign national cannot just walk into your home without your permission. So they get into these spaces because they're being permitted by us as locals, right? And now we are saying that they're taking businesses from locals. How do we then address that issue? Okay, it is now happening. How do we then rectify that? How do we address that? I grew up in rural areas. Where I come from, we used to have amahoshi. So the community leaders. For someone to walk into the community, they would need to seek permission. For them to settle into that particular community, they would need to seek permission from a community leader. And now, in the township setting, how are we handling this? Is it an agreement between a homeowner, then it becomes just a private agreement, let it go ahead? What are community leaders saying, or what are you guys as spaza shop owners saying with regards to this arrangement? Thank you so much. So I think I will also give you a platform to maybe be able to respond. And this is not only to Jacob or to Paul, only to everyone who would like to, join the discussion. So I think, yeah, the next question, it's gonna be coming, or input is gonna be coming from Rafiki.
No, thank you, and good afternoon to everyone on the platform. Let me maybe start by commenting on the point that you've just raised now. Yes, I'm also from a rural area, and you've just said now that is the true practice of what used to happen, not only maybe for foreign nationals, but even if when as a local resident you would have visitors, you would have to go and also inform the local either headman or the chief in the area. So, and I think one other thing that has mainly affected our different communities, including the township, lack of maybe continuity on those practices that used to take place, because it used to help in terms of administering some of these issues, the influx, and just having some of these mushrooming of spaza shops and all of that, which are not properly regulated, because that traditional practice used to help in terms of regulating a lot of operations that will take place within the community. But I do not want to divert from that, because there are many other informal practices that are happening, which end up also taking out local residents in some other businesses outside of the tech shops. But I do not want to go to those ones because I will be diverting a lot from what we're talking about today. And the other issue that maybe as a comment that I want to raise, I think maybe it's from Professor, I'm trying to check for names, who gave a presentation on the studies that they did. And yeah, I think it's Professor Nicholas Ngepa. I hope I'm correct in that. So with regards to some of the issues that I picked up, I think there's some gaps that maybe the analysis that was done in the township may not really give that information from that presentation. Like in terms of the fairness when it comes to trading in the townships, especially the tech shops. I think, let's take, for example, for a local resident who is a South African, when they're operating a tech shop, you find that maybe that's their only source of income. Within the profit, they need to take care of other responsibilities, such as paying for bills and transport for kids to go to school. All of those elements need to be factored in when they run a business, as opposed to maybe a foreign national who, some of them, they don't have those responsibilities locally. And in some cases, you find that they trade within a shop and they sleep in that shop. You find it's more than one of them in the shop. As such, you can never compete with people who are not having other responsibilities outside of just running the business, and they are crammed in one space. And I think it's one of the things, I don't know how can we really link that to some of these trade agreements or whatever that needs to happen. But I was just saying, putting that as part of the comment to say these are some of the elements that we may not really get to a point wherein we can address when we want to talk about issues of fairness in terms of trade. And even when some locals may complain to say that no, the foreign nationals are taking our businesses, even the case against the competition or is it commission, it would never address these issues or these elements, because when you talk about business operations, you have to look at why are the people operating the business and what do they use their the profits for. And when you look at that, that's when you look at the total value chain. And some of the foreign nationals, what they're doing is just to operate, and they don't reinvest the money locally. The money is just coming from South Africa, going out, from South Africans going out, but it's not being reinvested back into the different communities. And there was a point that was also made by Marsha. I was trying to respond to that, but I was affected by load shedding and I couldn't complete when he was talking about the issue that we're dealing with, but I couldn't capture it correctly on my side because it disappeared on my chat. Thanks. That will be all from my side.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rofiki. I mean, that's really the reason why we have brought in, different groups from different angles. So Prof has provided his perspective from the academic, and you are now bringing another view, which is also very important, another perspective, because it sounds like you're a person from the ground, which is also very important, Rofifi. So I think we highly appreciate that point of view. I see, Paul, your hand is still up, but I would also want you to step in, if you could, into this issue around how should we then reverse the matter. After you, Paul, then I'm going to open up to, I think this should be one of the business owner, Tliana Manufacturing. I think you are representing your company called Tliana Manufacturing. I hope I'm correct, Paul?
Which Paul is it now? Is it me?
Yes, Paul.
Thank you.
I brought back the question to you.
I am representing a business forum that we have created in Eden Park, also part of the community structures, to which I am a member of a portfolio of economic development and city planner, the ward committee structures. So my proposal or suggestion is to identify areas where there's a high level influx of foreign shops and put a moratorium on that. No more foreign shops to open up. In response to the previous response that I gave and your subsequent comment, I believe that many of our people are so impoverished that they just take on anything that can put bread on the table for them without thinking about the consequences of their actions. And, we can't step into individuals who wants to do stuff like that. But we need to formalize ourselves and bring in community structures, governmental structures, law enforcement, and really sit down with the business associations in our area and clearly, soberly make decisions as to how we can handle our area. I believe it differs from area to area. And then we find a way that can work for us. And I have engaged my council in the area. I have engaged other councillors in the surrounding areas. How are we going to solve this? And by one means is legislature. That's why I've asked about a 5 million rand threshold. How can foreign owners come in here and open up a spaza shop? whilst the benchmark or the minimum for investment in business is 5 million rand. So there in itself, we can cut the truth right there, that this business and the spaza shops are for people in the location who does not have a lot of money to invest, but who wants to do something to have a living sustainability. So we can look at that as well. Everybody has to play his part here. We can't just leave it to one person. And we feel for the foreigners that comes into our country, but you can't fix a wrong with a wrong. And we need to find a way, middle ground here that's going to work for all of us. I agree. And we must really speak open-mindedly here with and towards one another as to what we want and what will work for us. Right. So if somebody can tell me about that 5 million rand threshold, can't we institute that and just get it done?
Thank you, Paul. I'll get Mr. Ndwane to respond on that because that is related to the Immigration Act. He is going to respond on that. Then let me move. I see there is Morapedi. Morapedi, please, can you ask your question or can you make your comment? Thank you.
Thanks, Papa.
Oh,
it's Morapedi
and
from
apologies. Apologies. I think Tliana came first. Can we allow Tliana to go ahead first? Apologies, and then after Tliana, then you would come, Morapedi. Apologies about that.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I was about to protest. Papa, am I audible? Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. My name is Jabulane. I come from the township Davidton. Okay, today I'm wearing two hats as a manufacturer self and also as a part of an association that deals with a lot of tuck shops in our area. So I just want to give maybe a brief background into this issue. In January this year, the association decided that it's going to have a workshop where we engaged the landlords who are harvesting these foreign nationals. We did that for 2 weeks, I think, in different wards in our location to just give information on what are the implications and what are the requirements to harbor foreign nationals, what is expected of you, and then what are the consequences if these foreign nationals, they don't have the right documentation. So piggybacking on what Mr. Paul Jacobs was saying, we need enforcement, and enforcement has to be done for us to win this, because a lot of these landlords, when we speak to them, they are not having any agreements, most of them, in hand. The agreements that they are holding, they are sitting with these foreign nationals, and then they get to be edited and done whatever it's done up until to such a point that some of them, they've lost their houses. So it's a huge problem. The issue of compliance, unfortunately, us as entrepreneurs, we cannot enforce compliance. It's only the state, the government that can do that. We can only identify to say, here is the problem, this is what is happening. And then in our area, there was a drive that was made. I'm not sure if it was immigration and home affairs. There's foreign nationals that they went into, they found illegal ammunition, a lot of illegal ammunition that they were hosting in their warehouses. But they are allowed to carry on as business as usual. So enforcement, unfortunately, has to come from the state. Otherwise, we are saying that the people must rise up and do something about it. But it is a serious, huge problem that is giving us problem. And then the fairness of the competition is not fair when you compare from the foreigners to the locals. Locals, we are subjected to your compliances. It's very easy for the Metro Police to apply bylaws on us locals, of which they don't do. I'll make an example. One guy wanted to start a spaza shop, but because of, I think his structure was protruding to the paving, they came down and they clamped him down because of the bylaws, and he's a local. Now, when we raise the situation to say, how can it be, here is opposite him, in the opposite street rather, a foreign national was moving in almost the same time. When did he get the permission to erect a huge 12-meter container, which made it was also protruding on the pavement? I can tell you, as we speak now, the local entrepreneur had to close down. It's still closed down, but the foreign shop is led to operate under those conditions. So there is no fairness in terms of competition. It's not like the foreigners are competing fairly. The laws of this country are suppressing us as local entrepreneurs than the foreign national. And that is what is causing this a lot of animosity between us. So when we say there is a room for the both, but currently it's not fair. The competition is not fair. Okay, it's fine. We move on from compliance issues that the government must deal with. The other issue that we are trying to do now as an association is to gather these local shop owners. We created a group where we're going to be doing this bulk buying now. And then the interest is there to do this bulk buying. Now the problem is now when in our area, we still need to go back to the foreign nationals and support, because they are the ones with what do they call them? Not warehouses, but what's the word I'm looking for? Where we buy in bulk. They're the ones who are owning such. And then the rest of the warehouses, they are far away from us. Now, and then the other challenge with that is that on these warehouses that are owned by foreigners, you don't find locally produced goods. They only stock their own goods, which we know that they are substandard goods. But unfortunately, enforcement is not done, so they perish on that. They flourish rather on that, and then so that is the issue that was raised when we had that bulk buying meeting, to say that, okay, still we're going to be doing this bulk buying, but we're going to be taking our money and still investing it back, taking it back to the people that we are having complaints about. And then still we have manufacturers that come to our tuck shops wanting to list our product, but we cannot go to them because there's no structure in place. Now, for us to have such in place, we need a large investment. Unfortunately, it goes down to capital. There are means that we are doing as association to gather our people so that we can talk about bulk buying. But at the end of the day, you find that the capital, it becomes a problem. And then the other suggestion that they've given us as an association to look at is for us to engage the likes of your Tiger Brands and all these producers to say, can't they issue us maybe a stock on consignment for startups? Maybe that could maybe solve this problem of getting these entrepreneurs, local tuck shop owners back into the industry, so where they can compete for the space. Yeah, I think those are the two suggestions that we came up with.
Oh, thank you so much, Jacob. Thank you so much. I mean, those suggestions, I think they gonna take us they are taking us forward, because that's exactly what I was about to ask you to say. What are the solutions that you're bringing on the table? Highly appreciated. But I think just want to caution that the aim of this program is not to indicate how much there are illegal foreign nationals who are not acceptable. The aim of the program is how do we then move forward? But I also like the fact that you are bringing into the fore the issues around enforcement. And I'm also going to hand that over to Mr. Ndwadwe as well, to be able to, I think, outline. He specifically mentioned this issue that they've got an enforcement unit. So I think maybe he will take us through in terms of indicating what that unit does, because I'm looking at the time, we're running out of time, but I want as much interaction with the people on the floor as possible. Mr. Ndwadwe, maybe before we do that, there's Morapedi, then Morapedi would be last, then I'll start to distribute questions so that they can be answered by speakers. Morapedi, is that an old hand?
No, thanks, ma'am. I think let me also welcome the opportunity, but ask the question. I am from Gauteng Consumer Affairs Office. The question, I think, and this follows a number of presentations and inputs. The CPA clearly indicates that those businesses or individuals with an annual turnover, whether formal or informal, with an annual turnover or net assets not exceeding 2 million, are considered consumers. The proposals that have been made and the issues that have been raised seems to be more on the benefit of those that want to be in business. But the question that follows is that the kind of remedies that are being proposed, how do they translate to an ordinary person gaining or receiving better goods quality-wise and better services from whoever that is conducting business in the space that they are conducting that business in? Part of the deliberation seems to want to propel everything else beyond. We understand that the business of business is business, but for us, it becomes interesting to listen to business people saying, and academics as well, saying, these are the issues that we are identifying. But business says to us, we want regulation, we want interventions, we want space to be controlled, and we want a fair competition. But how does that translate or benefit the consumers in the spaces that we are fighting for? Because part of what we ought to get in the final analysis, because South Africa is a signatory to a number of conventions, how does that benefit the populace in Gauteng, in the country, when we take the kind of positions that we are proposing? Because for me, that is not coming out clear. So I thought maybe colleagues would give some guidance to a certain extent to say, how will this translate, or how does it translate to consumers in our province, in our townships, in our hostels and informal settlements? How does this translate in them benefiting better services, goods, and so I thought maybe we can put that into the mix. Thanks.
Thanks. I think your that question, I'm gonna ask Prof. Nepa to see if he can be able to attend to it. Before I allocate questions, I want to check in the room, do we have representatives from the Gauteng Enterprise Propeller? Do we have representatives from the department's inclusive economy? If you are here, you can just unmute yourself and indicate that you are here, please. Because there are questions that I would want you to rather be the ones responding to. Do we have anyone from GEP, anyone from inclusive economy?
Good afternoon.
Yes,
Hello?
Khotso, yes?
Yes, I heard you mentioning GEP.
Okay, you are there. So there are questions
Yes.
there's a question that was asked around what are we doing to ensure that people on the ground are informed about all the programs that we have. It was also about, are there any webinars, are there any seminars, are there any conferences, workshops, basically about how are we disseminating information in terms of the support that we have in communities, in townships, in informal settlements and hostels. And what came to my mind, the reason why I'm asking this is because I know GEP has got regional offices. I know, and that question also asked the issues around the mentors. Well, do we have mentorship? I know GEP has got mentorship program. So I just wanted you to talk to it. Are you able in just, yeah, we're running off out of time. in just 2 minutes. Are you able to respond, please, Modica?
Oh, yeah, yes, ma'am. I think I can touch on some of the things that we do. I think you are quite correct. We've got regional offices across the province. And in terms of what we are mandated to do as the agency, all the regional offices are supposed to be having workshops in terms of creating awareness around the services that we provide as the agency. We also work closely with municipalities in terms of ensuring that they know about the services that we provide and they are able to do referrals. And we also participate in workshops, various workshops that are organized by our stakeholders, private as well as public organization. So we in terms of being present on the ground, we are present as the agency because we also have satellite offices that are located within some of the townships across the province, where we are able to be closer to some of our clients, our SMEs, so that we can be easily accessible. Also in terms of creating our own workshops where we take the services that we offer to the people. We also work with other provincial agencies that play a role within the space of SME and cooperative development. We also work with your CEDA, your NYDA, in terms of ensuring that we are not only working as GPS alone, but we work with all the stakeholders that are playing a role within the space that we are. So in short, what I'll say is that we are, as the agency, visible, and we are trying by all means to ensure that people knows about the services that we offer. And we are also, trying to ensure that we reach as many people as we can. And we also, in terms of our application process, you can make an online application wherever you are within the province that can then be captured within our system, and then it can be attended to within a reasonable time. Yeah.
Thank you, Yes, no, thank you so much. I think I'm sure you have responded to the question. I'm going to ask Mr. Ndwandwe, please come in about the 5 million threshold, investment threshold, but also around the enforcement issues, because major concerns around here, it's around enforcement. How are we ensuring that there's proper enforcement such that those that are supposed to be operating spaza shops are operating, and those that are not supposed to operate are not operating. I think to my producers there, Dr. Fred, we're running a bit of time because we're supposed to really be closing by 1 o'clock. Yeah. Yes, go ahead, Mr. Dwan.
Okay. Thanks a lot, ma'am. I think the question of Mr. Paul Jacobs, it's very relevant because what happened is true. It's just that the question on my presentation, I highlighted that there is this differentiation because we cannot categorize and group people in one basket. We've got refugees. We've got those whom we call refugees. We've got those whom we call asylum seekers, and then we've got those that are permanent resident holders, and then we have those that are actually the economic migrant, so those that are illegal in the country. So probably the spaza shop issue, because I noted your question on the gapping part. Are we actually talking the gap that is on South African nationals or on foreign nationals? Because according to the research that Professor Nicholas made, he found out that the foreign national, when they enter into our shores, they came well prepared, well trained. I like the presentation that was done by Mr. Brian, Vuleka Solution. I think it's coming, but it's also like Mr. Chablane from Davidton. They're also maybe having the similar, which is good. It's part of the solution. I think it shows that it's true in Zulu. They say it in Rovaisindo Mbogowai. So in other words, the problem that I think problems are meant to be there. so that the solution can also be there. So probably, I think we are still in the right party. I really appreciate the collaboration, and that is going to take place. It's going to be a massive, because it unites, bring us back together. Because you do remember what happened in 2008. There was this xenophobia issue, right? The pricing, I think Professor mentioned the pricing part of it, which is one of the elements that is actually tripping us. Yes, the foreign national, you look at how they assisted. That is why in most cases, when you figure out something, you look at the bad of it, you look at the good that it gives. So Professor Paul Jacobs is right. We increase the investment. Is one of the business permit that he's talking about, not the spaza shop. Spaza shop, they are using asylum permits. So permits and license are two different things. The permit has a shorter version, a lifespan, compared to a license itself. That is why now the law enforcement, when they regulate taverns and everything, they check the permit, because taverns, there's a tavern and shebins. Some they trade with license, some they trade with permits. So those are two different things. So with spaza shops of South Africa, right, I think the position that South Africa is taking now, we're being challenged, but it's good that we come to the force. The emerging of malls are the ones that actually disturb the trading, because in olden days, I was happy if ever my father was running a shop, as he alluded to. I think he's right, because it's part of the income that is generated within household. So probably by empowering them back, I think you sort of like taking from informal structure to come and put them into formal structure, which is a good move. So for me, I don't see any property. It's also a question, the first question of Zamam Kize. She raised a very important issue there. Are the people aware of the initiative, the programs that are about to take place, which is good, but at least it was answered as well. And then when it comes to social cohesion, I think social development must come to the fore. And then Mr. Hoso is just highlighted now, the workshops are going to be initiated and stakeholders are going to be called, because this is the same as like a South African hostels. You can't go to hostel without being introduced by Indona. Each and every hostel has its own Indona person that is in charge. So within our local community, our councillors are there. So all foreign nationals should. That is why I indicated earlier on that must be a cartel. If one person is owning about 5-10 shops, that's a pure domination, which is not fair. A fair balance must be created. You understand? There's no one better than the other. So if South African, at least they were sort of like ambush, like it's done now, it's time to correct it. It's time to make it right. It's time to merge with the global world, because I think we are far behind in terms of most of the things. You know where we come from. I can't even dwell much or going back to what has happened. We know the history. So what we do now, we're looking forward to actually restructure and rebuild. And look at the properties that Immigration Act provides Section 38 that says if you are harboring a foreigner, it's a criminal offense. So it's like, that is why even our own people, they also need that engagement, like workshops. I think if the councillors are on the ground, if they call us as stakeholders from government, we need to come on board to inform, like, for example, our own citizens, that they know that they reach the age of 60. They are not aware that they qualify for a free smart card. You don't have to pay anything within government, but they are not aware. So most of the information, if it's escalating within the high levels, it doesn't go down. And then we have all these misunderstandings. Thanks a lot, ma'am.
Thank you so much. I'm running out of time. We only left with 2 minutes, really, 2 minutes. So I stand to be advised. Fred, can we go for the way forward? Can we close now with Prof. Eta, or can we respond? Because there's just one more that we needed to respond to. What do you advise I do?
I think we can do the last response if you want to do the last response. Then
okay. Thank you
I've
so
been
much.
nominated by Prof. Eta to close, so I will close the session for us.
Oh, that's good for us. Okay, Prof. Ngepa, can you please come in? This is my colleague who wants to understand that everything that we spoke about today, how does that translate to a person, a consumer on the ground?
I think before Mr. Moropedi asked that question, I was reflecting on it already, and I have touched on that. It is a matter in competition law, it's a matter of competition economics, it's a matter of consumer welfare versus producer welfare. And if you look at the Competition Act, it seeks to balance the two. Because if you give much power to the producers, no matter what argument you have, you still have trouble. You give much power to the consumers, no matter what you do, you still have trouble. There must be that balanced power through appropriate market forces that are well regulated. Now, if you notice the presentation, you will realize that this extends to the questions that others ask as well. You will realize that the South African consumers themselves prefer foreign nationals for various reasons, foreign spaza shops. And I showed that pie chart of various reasons that they give why they prefer foreign spaza shops, which means that you cannot address that by simply enforcing some practices on foreign spaza shops and not addressing consumer behavior as well. The point is, what are those things that make them go to foreign spaza shops? That is what you empower the South Africans to develop those things to attract them. And these are market principles. Whatever you do, market principles will prevail. Otherwise, there will be underdevelopment, it will explode. Let me quickly extend then to the aspect of unlawful behavior. I want to quickly say that we researchers, when we step into the field, we are not forensic investigators. We are looking at objective factors that we can put together and bring about policy recommendation. In every society, there's bound to be some elements of lawlessness, and then the law enforcement officials will have to deal with that. But research has shown very clearly what are the characteristics of foreign spaza shops that give them an advantage. And if those characteristics are addressed, there will be movement of demand from foreign spaza shops to local spaza shops, and things will balance up. And that is why I think that the right solution lies in studying the value chain and understanding those advantages that foreigners have and giving those advantages to locals and peacefully shifting the focus of demand from foreign to local, and balance will come. And that is the solution I give as a parting shot. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. I think thank you so much to everyone for your participation. This was not an easy topic, and I must admit, I think Fred would also indicate that, because as we were planning this webinar, we were like, it's a very sensitive topic, but I'm so glad about the maturity that came out into the table, especially from spaza shop associations, and the fact that we all were discussing in good faith, so that we're able to come up with solutions for the problem. So as I've indicated from my side, I think my job is done. I don't have much time anymore. I'll just hand over to Fred, but we are open for further engagement in this regard, and we are looking forward to, incorporating some of the resolutions or some of the suggestions that have been put forward to us. We highly appreciate it. Fred, over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Barbara. I just want to say, first of all, thank you very much to Barbara for chairing this session. Like she said, it's a sensitive topic, but it's a topic that needs to be discussed because we need solutions. And I just want to say I'm honored to conclude the session today. So colleagues, government officials, and business entrepreneurs, the passionate business entrepreneurs, it's an honor for me to close the session today for us. Just a reflection from my side. I just want to say, by recently completing my PhD, I did a lot of work in perceived inequality, social unrest, but also into social cohesion. And for me, that word social cohesion is so important. If I ever go to my students and they ask me, how do we solve the issues in South Africa? I talk a lot about social cohesion and how we as society need to move forward by learning from each other. And I think Prof. Nagepa and all the other speakers put it so nicely and perfectly to say we need support. We need to support each other, learn from each other. There needs to be a trust system that's built up, understanding the value chain, and then from there we move forward. A lot of the times my students ask me, okay, but how do we move South Africa forward? And I tell them, think about South Africa as a big ship like Titanic. Yes, you have different people on the ship, different classes, different cultural backgrounds, different races, different people from different areas in life, but still everybody's on the same boat. And I feel that's exactly where we are in South Africa. We're all on the same boat in South Africa, and we're trying to move forward. And I think by bringing together three very powerful areas, the research area from university, the government area from legislation, and then also the business entrepreneurs that really are on the ground making the physical impact. I think bringing those three areas together is so vital. And that was the value of this presentation and this seminar and this workshop, to really discuss these issues and to bring forth these solutions, because by discussing these problems, we can bring forth some policy recommendations, talk about solutions, and move the ship forward. So I just want to say thank you very much for everyone attending. The session was recorded, so if you really want to get details about the recording, please send me an email. I'll put my email here in the chat box just now. It's also available on our Facebook page, Economics@UJ. And I just want to say again, thank you very much for everyone attending the session. We had a great discussion today, and we hope to have more discussions like this in the future. Like Barbara, Dr. Briasi has said, and Prof. Eita, we're going to move forward with this collaboration, because the relationship between research and government and business entrepreneurs are so important. Because just want to conclude, in the end, us as researchers, we try and analyze the data, we go to the field, we try to learn what are the issues, possible solutions, we go to government with them, we try to make policy recommendations, which can then be implemented by amazing products like the Vuleka product and other products that really go on the ground to assist spaza shop development in township areas. And I think that's so important moving forward. So thank you very much, everyone, for attending. We hope you have a great and awesome day further. And I just want to conclude the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, bye, everyone.
Thank you. Let's have another one as soon as possible.
Thanks.
We'll do that.
We'll do that, definitely.